I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, September the 24th, brought to you in part by Jorgensen Smart Bulls, their pasture-ready fall bull sale, October the 2nd on a Friday night at 6:30 p.m. on dvauction.com. Jorgensen Land and Cattle is the largest supplier of bulls in America, featuring Angus bulls that are more mature. They're 30 months old or older with 2 breeding seasons of experience under their belt. Don't miss that sale. Go on to dvauction.com and look through there until you find Jorgensen's sale, and you can go through their online catalog, look at the videos there. Also, you could go to jorgensenfarms.com. Not established yet, your fat cattle market. Here we are going into Thursday, and we haven't sold enough fat cattle negotiated cash to have any idea where this thing's going to be. However, what few sales we have had have been towards the top of last week's price spread, although they've pretty much all gone to a smaller regional packer, which they're the only ones that'll really get out there and push for numbers or quality whenever they need it. But we haven't seen your majors come in. They were saying that they would call in on Wednesday afternoon at 164. Nobody was willing to do that yet, so it looks like we're going to be a buck or two higher. And I think your feedlot guys are a little emboldened from last week. They were able to gain some ground by doing the same thing. It's the time of year when the packers are used to giving up some margin there, and their box beef cutout values have pretty much held pretty good this week. Normally we would think that this week is still seasonal and they would continue to kind of lose some ground in their wholesale beef prices until we get into that first week of October, and then kind of start climbing back a little bit. But they've been holding up pretty good, and they pretty much set the prices for those, so they're wanting to hold the price up on those, and your cattle feeders are wanting to hold the price up on their cattle. So you know, that's kind of the way it works. You want to sell stuff as high as you can. The board finally came up on Wednesday after kind of overdoing it on Monday and Tuesday of being down. We've got kind of a bearish looking cattle on feed report coming up on Friday. That won't come out till after the board closes on Friday, but a lot of your people are looking at the guesstimates, the early analysts look at the report, and it's just looking like it could be bearish when it comes out. And it really doesn't matter what comes out. It's all in relation to what they estimate it to be. So but they're looking at the estimates and they're thinking, looks like it could be worse than that. But let's look at your cattle on feed. Average of the analysts' guess, and this is through Urner Barry there, and they're kind of the top ones, which everybody pretty much follows the average of their analysts' guess. But your September 1st inventories of cattle on feed, they're guessing to be 103.4% of a year ago. It's going to be likely your heaviest inventories for this time of year that we've ever seen. And that's natural. You know, we had a lot of cattle coming in there. It's very, very dry all around. There'd be no place to keep any cattle that big turned out. In fact, your guys that have cows and calves are really struggling right now, and we're seeing a lot of guys having to sell calves off early. They don't have a place to really hold and wean them, and they don't have any feed there for them. So it's really dry, and that makes a difference when you talk about people moving cattle on to feed. But their cattle on feed over 150 days is expected to be up 21.4% over last year. That is big, guys, and we know that we've got some big carcass weights out there, but you know, the numbers on feed over 150 days, up over 20% over last year. Gosh, that sounds pretty bearish right there in itself. How about the placements during August? The average of the analyst guesses, and the guesses ranged from 101 to 110, but the average come in at 105.9, so about 106. And A lot of folks think that it could be higher than that even, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with them. A lot of cattle, a lot higher percentage of cattle were moving through your sale barns in August than 6% more, maybe twice that. So that doesn't always correlate perfectly, but we know that there was a lot of cattle put on feed in August, but a lot of those were put on feed in July, coming off your big grazing regions there, but maybe not calculated up until August. But it just looks like this report has the potential to be bearish. Also, your marketings, we're working with one fewer day in August, so your marketings come out to be 96.6% of a year ago. And so that's kind of bearish in itself, but we'll have to see. We may come out and if your placements are less than 106, it could be pretty good, and if your marketings are closer to 100, then that would be very bearish. But it's unlikely that we'll see this be a friendly report. Could be mostly neutral, but a lot of opportunity for it to be bearish. One thing that was noted that a lot of cattle going on feed, our Mexican imports of cattle were pretty big through August, up 37%. They were dry down there, moving a lot of cattle in, and just in the month of August, we moved 87,000 head of Mexican cattle north of the border. Now, on the other side, Canada, Canada's been in a kind of a good situation as far as supply and demand. I've noted here of late that your Canadian buyers are coming down into our northern states and buying feeder cattle and taking them north. I tell you what, they're a pretty good neighbor to have. Canada imports of cattle during August were down 36% at only around 5,000 head. So don't cuss our Canucks. I guarantee you that they do things a whole lot like we do, if not better. Let's talk about the board on Wednesday. October live cattle futures up 67 cents at 107.15. December up $1.02 at 111.20. So pretty positive on your board. We had some ground to recover there. You go on out for your out fronts on live cattle futures, up a dime to up 60 cents. So all positive, but just a pretty good day there of recovery. How about feeder cattle futures? September was up 30 cents at 142 even. That's based on an 800-pound steer. That's just a small premium to what our index levels are, and right in there pretty tight, which it's got to converge here, although nobody's really trading it anymore because they know that it's going to converge. October feeder cattle up 90 cents, so that's encouraging at 141.52. And you go on out from there on your feeder cattle up a quarter to up 82 cents. So kind of a good day of recovery on your cattle futures. So that was a good deal. Your fat cattle, like I said, we haven't seen hardly any trade at all. Iowa had about 200 head confirmed on Wednesday, some 104 live, some 163 dressed. Nebraska had more than anybody, 1,300 head. That's nothing. They sold those all live from 103 to 105, a lot of 104. Texas and Kansas, they had a few on the online sale, 104, 104 and a quarter, but just a few loads, not enough to really amount to anything. Box beef cutout values were higher on Wednesday. That's kind of significant, as we were expecting them to be a little bit lower every day this week. Monday they were higher. Tuesday they kind of mixed and backed off a little, but Wednesday higher. Look at your choice cuts on Wednesday's close, 215.87 up 43 cents. Select cuts 207.60 up $1.30. Your slaughter is running at a good pace, 361,000 through Wednesday. That's 1,000 more than last week, 11,000 more than the same week a year ago. But the last few times that we've seen us running well ahead of a year ago, then they kind of had a disappointing Saturday and we didn't end up having a bigger slaughter. But let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Wednesday, sitting at 141.41, up 86 cents. So That goes to show that a lot of our index type cattle were selling really well, and it's most likely the last of your yearling feeders. There will be some big calves sneaking into that index too and selling at a big discount, but that's pretty encouraging. How about your big sales on Wednesday? OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, 7,000 head there. Your feeder cattle were steady. Gosh, when's the last time you remember that? A big high volume sale there. Feeder cattle were steady. I'll take steady. Your calves, steady to $4 lower. And that doesn't surprise anybody. Dodge City, Kansas, winter livestock, 2,800 head there. Their prices were mostly $2 to $5 lower where they were comparable, but gosh, the yearlings look like they sold off well to me. How about 50 head, 925 pound yearling steers at $142, Dodge City, Kansas? That's as high as we saw anywhere in the world on Wednesday. I mean, even up in the Sand Hills in Nebraska or anywhere on 9-weight cattle. That's as good as it was, but still called the market lower where it was comparable. How about some of your best quotes around Bloomfield Livestock Market in Bloomfield, Iowa? The Schooley family sold 67 head, 796 pound steers at $155.35. Thought that was pretty impressive. Torrington Livestock Markets on Wednesday, 146 head of 874 pound feeder steers, bring 147.25. Bassett, Nebraska had a sale. We always have to talk about that when they have one, but I will say, and I'm not disparaging them at all, their cattle were a little bit more in line with the rest of the world this time. Now, consistently, or they have a lot of consistency in their market because the quality is outstanding, and some of the best cattle in the world up there on the Yellow Brick Road there up in the Sand Hills in Nebraska. But you look at some of your individual quotes, and they weren't really crazy high. Like I said, Dodge City, Kansas sold some 9-weights at $142. That's all Bassett did too, guys. But look at their market report and look at the weighted average prices on all the cattle. Look at your market report on Cattle Market Central through DV Auction there. Look at your best tested weights, and it was on all your feeders. Now, whenever they start having their calf specials, they'll blow everybody out of the water because there's always more premiums on your lighter weights. But the closer they get to the knife, the closer they get to bringing the same as everybody else. But 299 head of steers in Bassett. The 7 weights average 762 at 153.07. That's very impressive. How about 329 head of the 8-weight steers in Bassett, averaged 860 at 146.40. That's about $5 over your index on some cattle averaging 860 and not 800 pounds smooth. How about 937 head of the 9-weight steers? That is a slug of big 9-weight steers, and most all of these will be off grass. And the 9-weights averaging 948 at 139.72 on the average of all of them, well over 900 head. That's unbelievable. How about some heifers? 229 head of 7-weight heifers, averaged 753 at 142.58. 464 head of the 8-weight heifers, averaged 849 at 135.94. That's pretty darn good. That's better than steers would average in most sales. How about 634 head of the 9-weight heifers, averaged 924 at 135.08. But the best stick-out sale that I saw anywhere on Wednesday was from Bassett, Nebraska. How about 76 head, 855 pound steers at 150.5. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.